my new sensibility. My new sensibility.
Sense and Sensibility.
I hated that book.
didn't read the
That's
book.
a book that needs to be banned. Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice.
Whoa.
Wow.
Wuthering Heights. Oh my God.
Yeah, I didn't like
The
Wuthering Heights.
absolute worst book I have ever read was Wuthering Heights. Can we have
Never
an
read it.
anti-Wreck and Rev? Like, I reckon, Rev, that you stay the fuck away from this book. Hated that book. Oh my God, that was such a dumb book. And that was one that we read in class. Like, we had to do popcorn reading for that. So not only did I have to sit through other people reading that god-awful book, but half of my class couldn't read.
Yeah. That's always the worst.
Weathering. The name of the book is Wuthering. She told you that when she handed you the book. You don't even have to read that word. You just know that that's what it is. Why are you stuttering? The words are in front of you. You are in 11th grade, my man. And normally I wouldn't mock somebody for stuttering or reading slowly because everybody has different education levels. I just hate this book so much, and you're making it take so much longer than it needs to. We could have been done with this book in 2 days. But no, we have to take the time to read it together and then discuss it. Sometimes books just suck. Move on.
I never understood
We didn't
that.
get to
I
take a
hated
vote. We didn't even vote about this book. Like, why was a permission slip not sent to my house for that one? I would have forged a signature for that shit. God, I hated that book.
Okay, let's go.
This is the Always More podcast.
Hello and hello. It is April 19th, and welcome to the Always More podcast, where we believe there is always more room at the table for honest questions, meaningful conversations, and deeper understanding. Today on the pod, we are talking about ancient Danes, David Attenborough, French fried potatoes, and so much more. But first, I am your host, Tim Leakey, and sitting next to me is my best friend in the whole entire world, Christopher Ford.
Yo.
And joining us from the ether that is also known as Kansas, the greatest Gen Zer to ever see, that is Harley Bianco.
From the
Whatever
ether.
the thing is.
From
That's
the
me.
Ether.
From the ether. I like that.
The ether.
What does that mean?
You know, I don't know. I just start saying things and I don't know what's going to come out.
Sometimes I just start talking and I don't know where the sentence is gonna go.
I thought ether means like out there, like it's just infinitely out there. That's what I thought it means, but I could be
like
totally wrong.
Ethernet.
I don't think that's I don't think that's it.
Did you just say Ethernet?
Yeah.
Isn't that
So
how you
to
say
say
it?
that something is from the ether means that it is something being communicated from place to place. It has no precise
okay.
location,
Well, there
just
you
as
go.
a radio broadcast can be heard from many different places.
So I said it correctly.
So Kansas, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
we're
that
good.
works.
No precise location because it doesn't exist.
I'm not a complete idiot.
I wouldn't say you're an idiot at all. Tim.
Just a smidgen.
Just a
Just a little
smidge.
dash.
Well, welcome everyone. We're glad you're here joining us for today's pod. It is April 19th, and it's a day. It's a day. How are we all doing?
It's April 19th.
April 19th. We're in the middle
When
of
this
April.
is coming out.
I want you guys to know that today, if I were still in the church, would be my spiritual birthday.
Whoa,
Wow.
that's a thing?
It's funny that you remember that.
Well, it's the day before 420, so.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
I was 5 years old when I first gave my life.
Oh,
So
I
don't remember.
mean the one in high school when I counted.
Oh, gotcha. The third one that you officially counted, like
The real one. The one
real
where I
one.
was finally like, all right, let me get my life together.
Yeah, Harley, that's like a real thing. Like you get saved at least 3 or 4 times.
Whoa. What is the point of that?
Nobody
I thought it
knows.
was kind of like a whole thing of like once you're saved, you're good.
Well,
You're good to go.
that's a whole
depends-
theology.
Yeah, that depends on the subsect of Christianity you want to be a part of.
Once saved,
That's so
always
crazy.
saved, or baptism, or there's a few other versions of it.
Yeah, because I got baptized as like a wee lass. And then I just never got baptized again because what is the point? In
Yeah.
that?
When I got baptized, the
One
lady
and done.
before me was wearing a wig, and it came off in the water.
Nice.
Are you serious?
100% serious.
They made you wear a wig?
No, the lady before me wore a wig,
Oh,
and her wig came off in the water.
They made you wear a wig?
I thought you said, yeah, my wig came off in the water. And I was like, Chris,
They didn't make
you're
me.
wearing a wig.
I chose it.
That was my thing.
This
I
is
was
the
like, this
life
is
I chose.
news to me.
Oh man! All right, everybody, we got a packed show today. Today we're bringing up some news, but before we do that, we got let's try that one more time. We got a fun short segment. I was going to say fun short, and then the sh got in front.
The Shun Fort.
The shunt fort. It's time for a little Wreck and Rev. This is a part of the show where we like to recommend and review some things. Chris, what do you got for us?
So I know we've talked about the show previously, The Last Kingdom.
Yeah.
They put out a movie on Netflix recently, and I watched it last night.
Yeah, how was it?
It was actually really good. I feel like they should have probably turned it into a season of the show and just been like the final season, because there were a lot of things that felt rushed. But the storyline, the plot of the movie was pretty good. The ending was ambiguous the way most people don't enjoy, but I like. It was a pretty good show. Lots of cool action sequences.
So I'm
good
assuming
graphics, all of that.
So I'm assuming you did watch the last season then.
Yes.
See, I did not. I am behind.
Yeah, you need to watch the last season and then watch the movie.
Okay.
Because none of it will make sense if you don't watch the
Well,
last
I
season.
would assume so.
But it's The Last Kingdom, 7 Kings Must Die. It's on Netflix, and it's worth a watch if you've watched the show. If you haven't watched the show, you might be a little lost, but it's still a good movie. Still a good movie.
Yeah, what is this about? Like, I don't know
Uhtred,
any
son of
this.
Uhtred.
It's about a Saxon before the British were British. He's a Saxon that was raised by Danes, which are the Viking race.
Yeah. People.
I guess
Okay.
Viking is a job, but the people that are known as Vikings are actually Danes. They're Danish. Also, Hamlet was a Dane.
It's true.
Anyways, he was raised by Danes, and then he ended up in the employ of the guy who's trying to unite all of Saxon kind into one England country, the first king of England,
Oh, King.
Alfred.
Yeah.
So he ends up working for Alfred and subsequently Alfred's family. And then this movie is about Uhtred, the Viking slayer,
It is
the Dane slayer.
It is loosely based on actual history.
Very,
Kind of like how
very
like
loosely.
Rain is.
I don't know.
Have you seen Rain?
No.
No.
It's about Mary, Queen of Scots, I think, but like loosely.
Oh. Yeah, it's a very loose interpretation.
Like what Alfred did was historical, or like what he attempted
Like somebody
to do.
gave a director like, "Hey, I want a movie based on the founding of the country of England." And the director was like, "I have no idea what that is, but I got you." That's how loose it feels. But it's a really good movie, so check it out.
Cool.
All right, Harley, what you got?
So mine is a movie called Sling Blade.
1996 classic.
Are you going back in
Yes.
time now, Harley?
I am, because Hunter made me watch this, because ever since we've been together, he's been quoting this film. And he'll say things like, "It ain't got no gas in it." And like,
That
you know,
sounds
they're
like Hunter, and I love it.
yes. And then they're like, like, and the "I reckon," and all that. And so I'm just like, I have no context for what this is. Like, I don't understand. And he's like, "It's such a good movie. Like, you need to watch it." And his mom is the one who made him watch it. And like, you know, she was like, "Yeah, you got to see this movie." And so my preconceived notion of this film, because of Hunter's little quirky sayings and like quotes from the film, is that it's going to be funny.
Yeah. You would think
And
that.
I see the cover of the film, and you know how it's like very like dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was
Because
like,
it's a
oh, it's
90s movie.
satire. Like it's
It's
you know,
not. It's not.
it's not.
No.
It's not at all.
No.
And I almost cried like 4 times, probably. It's so good.
Very,
It's-
very intense movie.
it's very intense. There is like language and like slurs that are used just to describe like the main character and then like one of the other side characters who is gay and stuff like that. So if you ever do watch it, be prepared for that, because I was not prepared for that.
Those aren't the lines Hunter quotes.
Yeah. No, he did not say those ones.
Thank God.
But yeah, and I'm trying to think of what else. Yeah, it's just so much more emotional than I thought. And I was like, damn. God damn, this hurt. But yeah, it's about a man named Carl, and he's like the main character, and he's played by Billy Bob Thornton. And that's all I got for you, because I think you just need to watch it in order to really understand it. Yes. Yeah. Because if it's spoiled for you, it kind of just like ruins it. But yeah, it's so good. And I was like, what? And so now Hunter and I can go back and forth on quotes because I know what he's talking about.
Very nice.
So
French fried potatoes.
I reckon I like some biscuits.
What you reckon you like to eat in there?
All right, moving along. All right, so mine is, guys, look, we all know and love David Attenborough. His voice is legendary and iconic within especially the nature documentary world. And so they have been releasing an ultra-British documentary called Wild Isles. And it is a nature documentary set around the British Isles. So you got, of course, England and, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland and all that. And it's good. I am enjoying it. It is. Here's the thing, David. It's like you get any of these legendary voices like Martin Freeman, or what's another one? What's another legendary voice? Earl Jones. You get these voices, and it doesn't matter what you're watching. It just makes it 10 times better. Because let's be honest, there's not that many exciting things in England. Like, as far as nature is concerned, it's fine. Like, there's deer and there's some foxes, and that's about it. Like, that's what you got. You got some orcas that come up in the water, but that's about it. But the show is good, and it's really well made. And so seeing the foxes and certain other animals that are kind of cool, but I like it, and it's fun. And
I like foxes.
I can hear him saying flora and fauna.
Yes,
flora
in my head.
And fauna.
Yeah, so it's good. It's fun, and if you need just something to chill and to have in the background, it's a nice show.
I like putting on documentaries and falling asleep to them, like in the first 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think my favorite one. My favorite one was Cosmos with Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Oh,
season 1.
That's another voice.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's just really soothing, calming. You get to learn something if you stay awake.
Yeah, Planet Earth is pretty good. And then you wake up like favorites. 4 hours later, and then you see like an antelope getting mauled by some animal, and you're like, oh God.
Or you wake up, you got some mating going on. Like, oh, all right.
Yeah.
Nature.
You're like, oh, what
is happening?
All right. Well, any other thoughts, comments before we move this show along?
No,
nor
I'm good.
All right, this might be one of our shortest segments ever, but guys, we got a doozy of a main segment coming around, so don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
Not true.
Thank you all for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave a rating on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at AlwaysMorePod.
If you'd like to ask us a question for us to answer on the pod, you can email us at alwaysmorepodcast@gmail.com, or you can call us on our Always More hotline and leave a voicemail question at 254-218-4042.
You can also follow all of our social medias individually and as the Always More podcast. Thanks for listening. Let's get back to it.
In his 1941 State of the Union address, President Franklin D. Roosevelt proposed 4 fundamental freedoms that all people deserve.
The first is freedom of speech and expression. Second is freedom of every person to worship God. Third is freedom from want. Fourth is freedom from fear.
The four freedoms offer a powerful vision for the world, representing, too, what America can be at its best. Well, today's conservatives have their four freedoms, too, representing, as it turns out, America at its worst. Freedoms only for them to enjoy. One of them is freedom from history, meaning the violent, painful, and unsavory parts that make white folks look or feel bad. In Florida, where book banning and, frankly, human life has reached Orwellian levels, the DeSantis administration is now scouring social studies books for prohibited topics. The New York Times reports that at least one publisher, in trying to cater to Florida's draconian guidelines, chose to revise its story on Rosa Parks by omitting references to race. Kind of hard to talk about Rosa Parks, who helped launch the civil rights movement, without mention of her race, right? Here's the book's original passage on Parks. This is for first graders, by the way, saying, quote, "The law said African Americans had to give up their seats on the bus if a white person wanted to sit down." Okay, that's pretty clear. But then check out these revisions. One mentioning race, but indirectly, saying Parks was told to move to a different seat because of the color of her skin. The next revision took race out completely, saying Ms. Parks was, quote, "told to move to a different seat." That's it. No mention as to why. No mention of race or segregation, the law that resulted in Parks' subsequent arrest. It isn't just DeSantis and his minions waging this war against history. According to the New York Times, a conservative group complained to the state that a fifth grade textbook mentioned slavery 189 times. Another objection, an eighth grade book gave outsized attention to the negative side of the treatment of Native Americans. Quite the euphemism for genocide. And why not a fuller account of acts of violence by the indigenous, the group complained, such as the Jamestown Massacre of 1622, in which Powhatan warriors killed English colonists. I mean, why wouldn't they just welcome the European invaders taking their land? Like, pretend Thanksgiving. As bizarre as this stuff is, it does help to explain the other freedoms Republicans hold so dear. The freedom from facts, freedom from modernity, and freedom from losing elections. It's why they're hell-bent on erasing the progress of an entire century to take us backward to a world where LGBTQ people cannot live or thrive. And God forbid, drag queen story hour. And where, as they would have it, women exist as nothing more than incubators. Which is why today, in the year 2023, one male Trump-appointed judge can decide if a common abortion pill will remain on our shelves.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are back into our news segment, news episode, I guess, to discuss a concerning topic, and that is the rise of banning books and basically eliminating history and education. In the past few years, there have been a noticeable display of state legislators, city councils, and school boards both attempting and successfully removing books, history, scientific theory, and curriculum from public libraries, public schools, and even some colleges. So today we want to discuss why this is harmful and how we should learn from similar events in history. We got ourselves a doozy, folks.
Yeah.
I'm going to get very upset during this episode. I can feel it.
I think I'm going to start by saying it is quite ironic that these book bans, and we'll get into, because I know one of the biggest gripes is like, well, what are they banning? Like, we'll definitely get into that. But it's ironic that it's the people who often will quote scientists when it's like, well, it's male or female. That's just a scientific fact. Or,
Which is wrong.
Or they'll say something like, all scientists will say that, a fetus is life. And sure, but it's not encompassing the whole truth. And they'll say that for those things. But when it comes to history now, it's like, oh, so you don't want to actually discuss the whole history of everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they never do. It's always cherry-picked information.
Yeah. So, oh, man. You guys want to say anything before we get going?
I think I would say to approach this episode with an open mind, even if this is not something that you are interested in or care about or familiar with. I think it's important that you know it, at the very least, because it does impact you and the future of America and the future of our children and so on. So,
Agreed.
Yeah, solid.
Okay. So we have basically this main segment cut up into 3 different parts, and we're going to talk about first about what is being banned, because usually the outcry of the right is that the things that are being banned are these inappropriate things for children. And so I thought I would look into just what is actually being banned and cut from our school systems. So this is based on PEN America's Index of School Book Bans from July 2021 to June 2022. And there were about 2,000, I think I cut that off by accident, about 2,300 instances of individual books being banned. So by state, bans occurred in 138 school districts in 32 states. These districts represent 5,049 schools with a combined enrollment of nearly 4 million students. Texas had between 751 to 1,000 bans. Florida, 501 to 750. Tennessee and Pennsylvania, 251 to 500. So Texas is leading the way.
right.
As per usual.
Oh,
Yeah.
All right, so this is the subject matter of the banned content, and I would highly recommend, I have this article linked in our show notes, so you go check it out, and it goes into more detail, but I wanted to just kind of give you guys a quick brush of what is being delivered here.
And before you start that, this is all factual. Like, you can Google this information. It's very easily found. This is not opinions. This is not fake news. Like, you can see all of this stuff.
Yeah.
This isn't information we're choosing to pick because it coincides with our personal opinions.
Right.
It is just the fact.
So, 41%, and this is the most, revolves around LGBTQ plus themes. They have either themes, protagonists, or prominent secondary characters. 41%. Now, look, you could make the argument that, well, what if those books have, like, sexually explicit things? Like, first of all, there's so many other things. I think we talked about this earlier. There's so many other things in your libraries that have that in general. But the fact that it's 41% that has LGBTQ themes, that's more than just what people would say as sexual content or whatever. Like, that is far and beyond that. Not all.
Well,
Go ahead.
They deem it,
Right.
sexual content, of course. So
Your identity as a queer person is not inappropriate. That is not a thing. There is a difference between sexual content and being who you are, and
right.
gender is completely. Oh man, I'm trying to. Gender
Bear
and
with
sex
us.
are not the same thing, and it infuriates me when people just don't look things up.
Also, both of those things are a spectrum.
Right.
Nature doesn't really do binaries.
No, it doesn't. And so it grinds my gears because, like, this 41%, it's like it's literally just based off you being LGBTQ. That's literally
if
all.
the
It
word,
has
if
nothing
the word
to do with
gay is in it.
right. That's it.
That's it.
Yeah.
And gayness has nothing to do with you doing sexual things. It is who you are. It's the same thing as a straight person. If you were to say straight person, then you are implying the same exact things as saying a gay person. That's all
Right.
it is. Now, here's where it gets fun again. 40% is protagonist or prominent secondary characters of color. Guys,
Which is wild.
this is...
Y'all heard what they did to Rosa Parks just now?
Yeah.
Like, even if like this 41% LGBTQ, which it's important to note, even if that wasn't on this list, like, it is clearly, like, there is bias and there is racial
Undertones.
in all of this. Like, it is just pure bigotry. 22% was classified as sexual content. I would like to remind you, 41% was LGBTQ, 40% was characters of color, 22%, less than about half of those two things, sexual content.
Also, these
Right,
percentages
because that's
overlap.
less concerning.
Just so you guys
Yeah.
are aware, the percentages overlap. Like, there can be LGBTQ with sexual content, or protagonists of color with LGBTQ, like the percentages overlap because it's
Yeah,
it's not going to equal 100% just so the math isn't off.
Yeah.
Right.
21%, it was titles with issues of race and racism. 10% titles with themes of rights and activism. 9% biography, autobiography, or memoirs. 4% stories with religious minorities.
Which is wild.
Yeah. Nowhere in this list has anything to do with Christianity, with...
Straight couples.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Nearly half of the unique titles of banned books were young adult books, but bans also affected many books for younger readers, including 317 picture books and 168 chapter books. Of the 2,500 bans listed in the index, 96% were enacted without following the best practice guidelines for book challenges outlined by the American Library Association, which Harley, I'm sure you're aware of, and the National Coalition Against Censorship. Harley, seeing that you have a history degree and also work in a library, any context to what we just read there?
So I don't know if I can give like generalized context, because I really only know what happens at my library mostly. But there is, a process for book challenges that we have. And it's basically like, if you have a complaint about a book, and there is a reason you don't like it, et cetera, you can go fill out this paperwork, I think you have to put your name. I don't think you can leave it anonymous, and state like what is exactly happened in this book that you did not like, and so on and so forth. But most oftentimes, people like to just complain and kind of state their opinions on books. And so they like kind of come up to us as librarians and they're like, well, why do you have this book? Like stuff like that. And I just don't really see the point in this book being here. I don't think it's appropriate for children, especially of this age. And you can't entertain their opinion or, go against their opinion. You kind of obviously have to stay middle ground, and not agree or disagree. And then we just kind of like let them know what the process is. Like if they really don't think we should have that book. And very often they don't follow through with it. They just want to say something
Excuse me, ma'am. I just need you to know that I'm a bigot.
Yeah.
It's important to me that you get that.
And so if it does go through with like them filing a book challenge, it's reviewed usually by like I think the board and like the directors of the library. And they just kind of determine whether or not this is really that big of a problem to be banned. And most oftentimes, at least in my library, we're very lucky that if it is something like LGBT, blah, 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 we're like, sorry, we buy books to represent our diverse community. And I understand that like this can make you uncomfortable, but we can help you find things that you will like.
Yeah.
I suggest Mein Kampf.
I don't even know if we have that.
It's not a banned book.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
Anyways, so yeah, those are like our personal guidelines for like what to do in a book challenge. And so considering that it says 96% were enacted without following the guidelines, is wild.
Yeah.
Because there should be a reviewed process for it. Just because having like obviously a biased opinion is not going to serve anyone justice. It's just going to please whatever person has this like.
But little people like Ron DeSantis get it in their heads that they are the power and they can do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Yeah. And people just kind of be like, oh, that's a force to be reckoned with. I guess we'll just listen to him because he knows better, kind of thing, because he's in a position of power. But that's why there are things like library boards and library associations for this kind of stuff.
Right.
And so it's really sad to see those being avoided at all costs and disregarded when it's literally public information and education.
Right. Well,
it,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say that it's one of those things where it's like, if you don't like the book, find something else that you do like.
Yeah, it has no impact on you whatsoever.
Literally.
Like, just move on.
Or if you don't want your kid reading this book, don't let your kid read the book.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild to me that people like it's the whole point of choice. Like, you have the choice to read that book or not. You have the choice
Not
to
anymore.
let your children go to read that book. Like, you as a parent have that right. Like, no one's taking that away from you. It's wild. And that's why I want to mention too, like, you mentioned it too, Chris, about DeSantis. He's like threatening AP classes and like college, like trying to challenge the college board of what is not allowed in college. It's like,
I thought he had actually had classes banned from Florida colleges, like minority studies
I
and
think he was
women's
trying
studies.
to. Yeah,
I thought it actually went through. I don't know.
Chris, you also mentioned a great point. Things that were not on the list, which is really telling, are things like, white supremacy, or not white supremacy, like the KKK or things that were like Mein Kampf. Or
they're banned if they are negatively showing the KKK, but they're not banned if it's just like a history or a positive light of the KKK.
Right. But you would also think of things that have always been not always, but like especially in the last 50 years or so, that has been a big topic issue with Americans, I guess 100 years, is like communism and Marxism. You would assume that would be on this list, but it's like nowhere on there.
Yeah.
Like, I'm sure there's tones in it and different parts of it, but like not enough to make a big percentage point. And so you would like, it really is just telling just the bigotry and the hatred that is involved in these lists and in these bans.
I think probably one of the biggest telling books that was banned happened a long time ago. They're just maintaining the ban at every opportunity. It's Orwell's 1984.
Oh, yeah.
Talking about big government.
That's one of my
being
favorite
bad.
books.
Yeah.
Yeah, like, hey, we don't like you talking about how bad government is, so we're going to ban this book that talks about how bad government is because we're the government. We can do what we want. It's kind of proving the point of the book, don't you think?
Yeah.
Yeah. There was another situation that happened kind of recently with a patron, and it was a young child, and she was wanting information about 9/11 and like the Twin Towers. And I was like, because at what point do I just like, hey, are you sure you should be reading this? Like, kind of thing. And so my job is to obviously find her the type of book she wants, show it to her, and if she wants to check it out, she can. And so I showed her some of the books that we had. And I remember her taking it over to her mother, and I was like, I'm about to get so yelled at right now. Like, she's about to rain hell on me. And instead, which was really nice, her mom was like, okay, well, we can read this together, but if you're reading this, it will have to be with mom and dad.
Oh, okay.
Because, lived experience, they can explain the things and the content in the book to her better.
That sounds like how every book should be handled if it has sensitive content. It's almost like there's a line between children and information that maybe somebody or something of an older age, maybe a higher authority, that's probably related to them and is already showing them things in life would be able to handle.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so I was like, oh.
Parents, that's the word.
So,
well, and that kind of lies into the problem too. It's like, even when I was a pastor, youth pastor, it's just, it's not everyone by no means, but they definitely make a big splash. Or the parents who just want their kids to get all their information and all their learning from teachers, from pastors, and they not put any work into it at all. And then they
Yeah.
like to complain when you're not doing it the way they would want to do it.
Yeah.
And that's just, yeah.
If I were going to do it, I would do it this way. Okay, then do it that way. No, you do it.
You literally. And then I think another big thing is parents feeling like they don't know about what their kids are reading in school, or like, because like in your English class, there is always one book in your English class that you will read together as a class.
Yeah.
And most often than not, it is probably a book that's like, not exactly like controversial, but sensitive topic of some kind, right? But more often than not, you get a paper to take home to your parent so that they can
I forgot about that.
confirm if this is like they want their child to read this or something like that. Or like with movies, they want their child to watch the movie in class. And I think it's on the parent to reach out to your child and be like, hey, what's going on in school? Like, what are you learning about? And you can also check, I'm pretty sure you can email that teacher and get their academic calendar thing, or like their academic, what is the word?
Syllabus.
Like what they're teaching. Yes.
Yeah.
So it all really falls back onto parents and guardians.
Yeah. Yeah, I was reminded that there's a lot of books in history that used or have been attempted to have been banned, and like you got books like The Great Gatsby, which I read in school, Catcher in the Rye, Grapes of Wrath, Kill a Mockingbird. Like that one, like it's wild to me because I remember that came out a few years ago. Someone was trying to get that banned again, and it's basically making, because their excuse was like, well, that makes white people or whatever look bad. It's like, really?
White people
You
were
don't
bad?
say.
You mean like history?
Like history, and it's like
Reality?
like we talked about this in before we aired or before we recorded this, but I was going to go into this whole deep thing about CRT, but I'll just say this, like, guys, no one is teaching your kids this college level collegiate theory about race. No one's doing that. There is no teacher out there who has on their syllabus, hey guys, I'm going to teach you about how horrible white people are. They're not doing that. But what they are and should be doing is teaching children that, hey, this nation has a really bad past, but there's also some good people that we can look at to resemble on. There's a guy, I can't remember, he was doing an interview and he was talking about CRT. He was talking about things that have been banned in history books and whatnot. And it's like, white people are failing to realize that there's also really great abolitionists in history that we can be putting up on a pedestal.
Yep.
Like, they're both black and white people who were advocating to end slavery before the Civil War that we could be celebrating and bringing up. Yes, talk about the bad negatives, but also bring up the good positives that were around in that time. Granted, they weren't as prominent, but we can still bring them up.
Yeah.
It's just so wild that people have to like pick or choose. Like, no, we can. It's supposed to be balanced. It's not supposed to be black or white binary. Like, it's just talk about truth. Oh man.
And it's also a matter of school boards and districts approve what is taught.
Yeah, we're about to get to that.
Their schools. So if you really have that big of a problem, you should really take it up higher than that.
Yeah.
100%.
All right, let's move on to some current examples or current-ish examples. So this is kind of where the news part of this episode comes in. Llano County, which I just realized, I wonder if that's based off of a Latin or a Spanish. Llano? Yeah, county. In an article.
Yeah, but it's Texas, so.
Right, yeah. In an article from the Texas Public Radio by Kayla Padilla, we see an example where county commissioners would rather close down their entire library system. Mind you, that means like firing people, like people losing their jobs, instead of complying with a federal judge. The Texas Hill Country's Llano County commissioners debated whether or not, and this is still ongoing, to shut down their library system rather than abide by a federal judge's ruling that they must put 17 prohibited books back on their shelves. So they took out 17 books. A federal judge came in and was like, no, put it back. The banned books, which address issues of race, and LGBTQ identity were taken down last year without the consent of the public. Guys, we're a fucking democracy.
Yeah.
No. We're a fascist dictatorship wearing the jacket of a democracy.
It's blue.
Right now. Give it a couple of years.
So, without the consent of the public, after Llano County officials deemed them to be pornographic and sexually explicit.
That's wild.
A few examples: Cast, The Origins of the Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. They call themselves the KKK, The Birth of the American Terrorist Group by Susan Campbell. Susan Campbell Bartoletti, thank you. Being Jazz, My Life as a Transgender Teen by Jazz Jennings. Spinning by Tilly Walden, and In the Night Kitchen by Maurice Sendak. The county was sued by 7 parents for removing access to the books last year. The 17 books were ordered to be put back on the shelves on March 30th by the federal judge Robert Pittman because they had been singled out by authorities for the concepts they present. According to a Supreme Court precedent, books cannot be removed because of bias. Following the county's
freaking crazy.
Following the county's appeal, the commissioners of Llano County met on Thursday, so that was a couple weeks ago in April, to discuss whether to completely shut down the county's libraries rather than abide by the judge's ruling.
Which is so insane to me, because libraries are such critical resources of their communities, especially for those who are in poverty or of color and minorities, because they offer things like printing and like scanning and the internet and a place to be when it's cold outside, such as the homeless, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to completely just eradicate a public library because you don't want to put 17 books out of your 1,000 collection of books is mind-blowing. Mind-blowing.
Yeah. It is.
The governments don't care about the people. That's the problem.
Oh, my God.
They really... It's not that they don't care. They seem to resent the people that they are governing.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's more like they hate them than they just don't care about them. They want them to be hurt and out of power and controlled and submissive and docile because I guess that's how they get their kicks. I don't know. I don't understand it.
Insane.
Yeah. So I was just looking it up because I found this article a few days ago, but it turns out that they did keep the libraries open, though they are still trying to challenge the judge and everything. So well, there you go. Yeah. In 2021, and we're going to be talking about Texas a lot, not just because we're in Texas, but because they're mainly the main culprits of all this.
Texas and Florida, yeah.
In 2021, the Texas Senate passed a bill that removed Martin Luther King, suffrage, and Native American history from the required curriculum. You remember that?
No.
Furthermore, it eliminates the need to cover the history of white supremacy, including, that was a quote, the history of white supremacy, including but not limited to the institution of slavery, the eugenics movement, and the Ku Klux Klan, and the ways in which it is morally wrong. Yeah, it was like a whole thing. There's like I remember seeing a clip on TikTok from the debate on the floor, and one of the Democratic senators was like, "Hey, are you aware that your bill bans like talking about Martin Luther King Jr. and his I have a dream speech and all this?" And he goes, well, I guess we'll just have to review that or look at it. It's like, so you weren't aware. You like not only are you advocating for this, but are you just not aware what's in this? Like, what is the baseline for you presenting this bill? It's just wild.
Like, who's writing this?
Yeah.
Who is this? Some ghostwriter?
Yeah, actually, it's there is a conservative Christian organization, the Council for something, I can't remember.
Hold on, I think I know what you're talking about.
But they've been like behind the scenes doing
Moms for Liberty?
No, not Moms for Liberty. Well, that's part of it. That's one of their subsidiaries. But they've been behind the scenes for like the past 100 years doing all kinds of crazy conservative stuff. Like, they're playing the long game. They get in secret meetings with these politicians and they pay a lot of money. They ghost write bills and hand them to politicians and tell them, do this now, and they just do it. It's insane.
What the fuck?
Yeah, it's insane. It's I'm trying to remember the council for something. I saved some TikToks about it. I'll find it. Give me a second. I'll find it.
While he's doing that, let's move on. This month in Indian River Country, Florida, following complaints from a parent group that the books minimized the Holocaust and reveals the young girl's thoughts about other female bodies, an illustrated adaptation of the Diary of Anne Frank was taken out of the Vero Beach High School library.
Are you joking?
While the original edition of the Diary of Anne Frank is still available in the Freshman Learning Center and middle school libraries, but one of the 4 books Jennifer Pippin, chair of the Indian River County Moms for Liberty chapter, had challenged last month, Anne Frank's Diaries, the graphic adaptation, was taken down. Essentially, they felt like it focused too much on her and what she thought about her body and other things. It's like...
Have they read the original?
I don't think so.
That's the whole point.
I don't think so.
And making it a graphic novel makes it easier to digest for young readers.
Right.
So that's why they made that.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That is bizarre.
It's like when people, it's like a lot of these times these laws or these bills will be introduced and people will be saying things like, well, it's not about, or it's about the content and everything. It's like, but when things like this come out, it's like you really are focusing on the young children. Like you're cutting out things for children because anyone can read a big book, but like if you cut out things for kids, then it makes it easier to indoctrinate them. So,
Yep.
Yeah.
It's the Council for National Policy is what it's called.
oh, I think I've heard that.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
In February, 5 Iowa mothers, all members of the right-wing Moms for Liberty organization, spoke to Iowa lawmakers about their efforts to restrict or ban inappropriate books from being used in classrooms. The removal of LGBTQ-themed books from the Library of Granbury, Texas, school district is under investigation by the U.S. Department of Education Civil Rights Division following the complaint by the American Civil Liberties Union. I'm just kind of blowing by some of these.
That's okay. Oh, this one is the one that I was talking about.
You want to read it?
Yeah. But before I do that, I also want to note that the craziest part is the fact that these books are getting banned for content that's not even the main point of the plot.
Yeah.
The plot of these stories half the time is
Normal.
a mystery,
Yeah.
coming of age, high school, etc. Developing best friends, you know what I mean? And they're like, oh, but they're gay. So bad. No, can't have. Like, bro, that's, and especially with like the Anne Frank one, she was a
Holocaust survivor.
she didn't survive.
Or I guess,
Sadly.
yeah, not survivor, but
Yeah.
experiencer.
But like, yes, someone who experienced the Holocaust and had to go into hiding, and you're focused on the fact that she's a teenager
Yeah.
a bi-curious
coming into her
teenager.
body as a woman, like as a girl. That's what you're focused on.
Right.
Yep.
Where did the plot of the movie go? You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah,
Okay.
it's the same thing. Like even like in Florida, I can't remember who or when. I'm sure DeSantis was involved, but it was like people were complaining that like a gay teacher couldn't have a picture of him and his husband up on their desk, and it's like not a problem if they're straight, but
Right.
it has literally nothing to do with sexual content.
Yeah.
Literally nothing to do with it.
And it has nothing to do with what that teacher is teaching.
Right.
Like their job.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a teacher. I read a story or heard a story about it where the teacher went on vacation with their husband, and like the kids asked, "Oh, what'd you do over the weekend?" And he was like, "Oh, my husband and I went on vacation," and that was it. Like that.
Yeah.
That was it. But that teacher ended up getting like parent notes written about him to the principal and all kinds of crazy BS. Like these people are just trying to live their lives, man.
Yeah. Okay. So the next bit doesn't exactly pertain to a book ban, but I think it's relevant because it is a consequence of banning books or revising history books, such as what we listened to earlier with like the Rosa Parks. So this is the same person. Her name is Joy Reid. She has a TikTok account, which is called The Readout. And basically she is a news anchor and she covers like lots of different subjects and things going on, but in a way that's like palpable, like you can understand it better.
Digestible.
And it's, yes. So basically, according to NBC News, the Ultimate Cancel Act would cancel any filings of any party that previously advocated for slavery, which the Democratic Party did more than 150 years ago. Now, you kind of just take that and you're like, whoa, that's so bad. I can't believe they would do that. Blah, blah, blah. The bill, which is called SB 1248, would require Florida officials to notify all registered voters who belong to any canceled parties that their parties no longer exist. It would also change their voter registrations to no party affiliation, meaning if you do not reassign your party affiliation to something else that exists, then you cannot vote in the primaries, which mostly disenfranchises people of color and etc.
Yeah.
So
what's wild about this is, first off, people just aren't aware of like the whole party switch thing. But like just look up like people like Strom Thurmond, who literally in the 50s or 60s was like this straight up Democrat, but because the government was basically advocating for desegregation and everything, he was an advocate for KKK. Like he was on posters for this kind of stuff, and he switched to the Republican Party. Him and along with hundreds of other people. It's like, just ask today. People in the KKK, who do they vote for? It's not a hard thing to figure out here.
Yeah,
this is not a hard concept. Who do they vote for today?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I just want to point out that I am intentionally choosing to remain quiet on a lot of these topics because they infuriate me. Like there is a fire deep inside of me that I just want to expel onto everyone that has these stupid opinions. Like this kind of shit is so easily Googled, so easily found. The information is there. That's why they're banning all of it.
Yeah.
But honestly, there's no need to ban it because their voter base does not care to find the information. Like they avoid it actively.
Well, I think it just revolves right back down to the root of it. It's really just about the next generation. That's why like this whole TikTok ban thing is a thing. And,
that's all it is. It's to prevent information from being shared and getting out.
Yeah, and like why voter restrictions are coming back and becoming a thing again. It's because this younger generation, as the stats have shown from this past election, are really showing. It's really telling that they're not taking up for this shit anymore. I
think if millennials and Gen Z were the only people able to vote, there were like 2 red states.
Yeah, it was like 70-20, I think. Yeah.
I think it was actually Texas and Kansas too, by the way.
Yeah, sorry.
Also, I was like,
whoa, I'm getting out of Texas. Oh, no.
If we went to like a straight democracy, like not a gerrymandered district republic democracy, democratic republic, I think like 71% of the country would vote blue.
Yeah.
If it was a popular vote, like every time it'd be much more liberal than conservative.
It is so wild. The voting system. That's another episode.
Sorry, that is definitely another episode. But as Tim had mentioned, if you don't know what the political switch is, let me go ahead and explain it for you.
Oh, is that what that is in this next paragraph?
Let me illuminate.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to take that from you.
No. It's perfect opener, actually. But Joy Reid, she actually goes into it further on the TikTok, and it is linked in our show notes. I made sure of that. But something that obviously people don't know is the political switch that occurred. And it wasn't like fast. It didn't happen quickly. But basically, following the Civil War and with the like 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments being passed and giving Black men the right to vote, they predominantly voted for the Republican Party at the time, which was a party of anti-slavery ideology.
Progressive.
Yes, they were progressive and not super progressive, but that's Joy kind of goes into that more.
They were
about
progressive
how,
for the time.
Right. And that the Democratic Party was the party who advocated for keeping slavery as an institution and so on and so forth. But with those amendments passed and Black voters, Black men, male voters getting the right to vote, the Republican Party started to like boom. And their kind of like civil rights ideologies were like becoming more popular. So this happened over a process of like decades. The party ideologies began to like switch, meaning that the conservative Democratic Party was soon like
It was the Dixiecrats, right?
I think so, yeah.
It was like
they were possessing
a
the ideas.
political K-turn.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
they left the Republican Party, or they left the Democratic Party to form their own
Right.
party, and then the Republicans started becoming Democrats, and then the Dixiecrats became Republicans.
Right. So kind of just like the pro-civil rights platform was super booming and that, et cetera. So they're starting to change. But like I said, it wasn't instant, and it really started to happen in the 20th century with Franklin D. Roosevelt, with the New Deal after the Great Depression, because he was like, wow, our people are dying because of our own actions. Isn't that crazy how self-recognition works? And there were several other presidents in between, like I think Harry Truman and Kennedy, John F. Kennedy, but all the way up to Lyndon Baines Johnson, who signed the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts, which essentially cut off like all notions of like Southern conservatism. And I'm talking like white supremacy and like the KKK and so on and so forth. With signing those acts, it was like, oh, well, this is kind of like the final end of this switch, because this Democratic president is for the people, not how it used to be where they were for themselves.
Yep.
And so then when good old Ronald Reagan became president, conservatism was like just stewing, boiling, reaching a boiling point in the Republican Party. But yes, it's further explained in the TikTok, like what that meant and how the Republican Party, even though they're trying to like kind of perceive themselves as like, oh, we weren't the original for slavery party, they still had their racists.
Yeah.
They still were problematic. But yeah, so there's that.
Yeah.
Just for funsies, I follow an account on TikTok that is literally just, hey, Ronald Reagan is still dead.
Yeah.
Like every post is that. There was one on Easter where it's like, it's Easter Sunday, and you know what that means. Just kidding. He's still dead.
I will say this for any of our listeners who might think Ronald Reagan is actually a good, decent human being.
He's not.
Go find this podcast called The Dollop and go watch or listen to their episodes about Ronald Reagan. And this is all like public record stuff that they repeat, but it's just wild because he was the worst.
Yeah.
Okay, we got to move on. Let's talk about some history. There are several examples in history of nations removing education in order to better control its population. But probably the most infamous is that of Nazi Germany's book bannings and burnings in the 1930s, leading up to its invasion of Poland and their attempt to eradicate Jews, LGBTQ, and disabled people.
As well as the Romani people.
Yes, thank you.
Romani.
And by no means am I diminishing the fact that it was prominently Jews, but it should not be dismissed that it was also Romani, LGBTQ, disabled, basically anyone who
people
didn't
of color.
Yeah, people of color, people who did not fit into their idea and definition of the, quote, dominant race.
Yeah.
Which is a social construct race.
Which proved it, actually, with World War II. So
That's my favorite. They're like, oh, we're the superior race. Are you? Because
Oh,
in
you
my
really?
opinion, a superior race would have won.
According to
period.
back-to-back World War champs, according to the U.S. Holocaust. According to the U.S. Holocaust Memorial Museum, beginning on May 10th, 1933, Nazi-dominated students groups carried out public burnings of books they claimed were, quote, un-German. The book burnings took place in 34 university towns and cities. Works of prominent Jewish liberal, and leftist writers ended up on the bonfires. The book burnings stood as a powerful symbol of Nazi intolerance and censorship. The Nazi University Student Association created blacklists of works by literary and political figures such as Bertolt
Brecht.
Thank you,
Eric Maria Remarque.
and Ernest Hemingway, that were to be thrown into the flames.
I've read a lot of these books.
In the aftermath of the book burnings, the Nazi regime raided bookstores, libraries, and publishers' warehouses to confiscate materials it deemed dangerous or un-German. The Nazi book burnings provoked international criticism from the intellectuals and the press. They saw it as a barbaric act that was out of keeping. Let me start that over. Act that was out of keeping with a modern civilized society. We highly recommend us here at the Always More Pod that you check out the rest of this article in our show notes, where they describe how Goebbels. God, I think about Inglourious Bastards and how they make fun of him. But Goebbels used education and propaganda to push the people in Germany to extreme fascist ideologies.
You know, these people are lucky that they were back then and not around with Gen Z today. Gen Z and Gen Alpha, because they would have destroyed these people just on their names alone. Goebbels, more like gobbles. Gobbled these nuts.
Now, some on the right might brush this, like the whole fact that Nazis burned and banned books, this to the side because they feel like what the Germans banned is nothing to what most Republicans are banning in schools today. Well, we found an interesting article by Travis Green where he used data analysis using data provided by Berlin's Open Data Initiative to dissect the most common words and themes in the books and content that were banned by the Nazis. Are you guys ready for this?
Isn't AI amazing?
According to Green, quote, there were actually two types of flags used by the SS. The first type was for books that threatened the Nazi culture, and the second type was for books that were, quote, unsuitable to fall into the hands of youth.
But again, Mein Kampf was fine.
These books also could not be shown in storefront windows or placed in bookstores where the general public could find them. After filtering out most of the grammar words and putting the most common words in a Bigram's cloud, which is like, like the images where it's like there's like these bigger words and smaller words. It's kind of like that. There are some key things to notice. A lot of poetry, likely an attempt to appropriate the German culture icons and use them to support their ideology. So a lot of poetry was cut out. Lots of references to communism, which, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but the Nazis were not communist. That's like what most Americans think of, but
they were fascist.
They were fascist,
which is exactly what America's becoming.
And one of the biggest obsessions, controlling family values in the younger generation.
Whoa.
Weird.
Whoa.
Here are some of the 150 most common words: love, war, history, Germany, ironically, marriage. It's probably because it was criticism of Germany. Marriage, youth, Jews, Soviet Union, Hitler, women, revolution, psychoanalysis, socialism, and the church. This is from Green. Based on this, we could infer that the Nazis were trying to control how Germans viewed their own history and the events of the Russian Revolution, which was only a couple of decades before.
Yep.
At the same time, actually a decade before. No. There was a couple. At the same time, the Nazis were worried about the role of the family and the institution of marriage, particularly the sexual mores of women at the time. And finally, they were attempting to suppress the free expression of ideas related to Christianity and the church. All of this supports the familiar historical narrative that the Nazis used censorship of the press to support the party ideology of racial superiority. Any books containing ideas that might make people question the party lines were banned from publication.
To me,
Of that ring a bell?
To me, it sounds like somebody in 1930s Germany got cheated on by his wife, and she probably left him for a black woman that's also Jewish. I don't know.
It's
like,
just,
I hate all of these things now. Kill them all.
Yeah.
it is just wild to me that it's usually, and guys, I used to be one of them. It's the Republicans who are like all about history, American history. And I'm like, guys, just
You're like, oh yeah, I'm a history buff. Oh brother.
It's like just look it up. Look at what the Nazis were banning. Look at what led them to the place where they got to. Which is why you have people today that are actually defending Russia right now. It's wild to me.
That is wild.
Ugh.
And also to mention the rise of anti-Semitism
Yep.
right now.
That's coming back
What's
in a big way.
in a big way? Too
Like,
big.
there are people
Too big for comfort.
proudly like goose stepping and waving Nazi flags,
Yeah.
and they don't see the irony in this.
Yeah.
That is the voter base of the right. We call it the alt-right, the extreme right, the far right wing, whatever, but it's not that far right.
Yeah.
It is like 2 steps away from your Republican uncle that you see at Thanksgiving every year.
Right.
Like that's who they are, and that's who they're targeting. And a lot of people have concerns about like kids falling down the alt-right pipeline. It happens to adults way more often and way more easily, I think. Because you watch like 3 things on Fox News and you're like, oh yeah, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden you're like, well, I don't think that blacks, this, and that. I don't think that gays need to be involved in this.
Yeah.
Trans people aren't real. They're all mentally ill. Like, sorry. Like I said, this is a very touchy subject. And I get really upset about it.
I think about it the same way when religious Christians, let me say that again. American white Christians get really upset about especially their kids, but other fellow believers question things about religion or whatever, about the church or whatever. It's like, you are afraid of the truth. You are afraid of history. You're afraid of exploration and these ideas. Yep. If you are truly about choice, about freedom,
about free will, like you claim your God is,
then this shouldn't be a problem. And so I'll have some final thoughts later as we end the show, but guys, just read your history.
It's like the party of freedom only cares about the freedom of straight white Christian people to own guns, and like literally no other freedom at all.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is why they have
You have the freedom to do what I say.
All right. On that note, that was a long thing, and we're going to end it. And we'll share some final thoughts towards the end of the pod.
I promise the ending will be more fun.
All right. Thanks for listening. We'll be right back. All right, everybody. Welcome back from that short temporary break. We are back. Back. What a topic. What a doozy.
What a fun little sensitive subject to get under my skin.
Yeah, I don't want to get into it, so I'm just going to move on and say
We promised it would be fun.
Yes, fun time now. We are getting into some fan questions. That's right. Just like how Rohan answered Gondor's call for help, we asked you guys for some questions, and you responded as such.
Finally.
True,
Yeah.
but they did respond, and we want to be kind to those who responded by saying thank you, and we are going to answer a couple of those questions today. Are you all ready? Here we go. Shane asked, what is your current favorite song? Harley, what say you?
Mine is Fast Car by Tracy Chapman, and it's from 1988.
Very interesting.
We have to have the year, too?
I just put the year because it's an old song. Luke Combs just did a cover of it for his new album, and it's pretty good. But the original hits.
The original
You
hit.
get a fast car. I got a plane to get us out of here.
Oh, yeah. I know that one.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
I don't.
It's very
know that
sad.
one.
That one, it was in, I don't remember if it was a TikTok or a Vine, but it was like having a hype man as a country artist. It's like, you got a fast car. Yeah!
No!
Skirt.
Oh man,
That's mine.
All right.
Chris.
So
Good Lord.
You know, I cannot. I'm a music, like, that's
We just
my
needed
special
one.
interest.
You
I
could have just
can't
made
do
it up. You
I
could have
can't
just
do it.
lied.
I'm
Why can't you
autistic.
just go by the rules?
Because I'm autistic. I can't, like, I couldn't just pick one. Because it depends on the mood, you know, I need context.
Okay, yeah.
So
all right,
some
fair.
of my favorite songs are Little Sadie by Crooked Still, Fi-Fi, Tobe Wigwe, Still Into You, Paramore. That's
Classic.
always going to be a top.
Yeah, that's
Song.
a good one.
Monsters by James Blunt, because I've been really in my feelings lately.
James
Hope.
Blunt is really good.
Right? Such a good
Yeah.
artist. Hope by NF, because, again, I've been in my feelings lately. And Run to the Hills by Iron Maiden, because I'm tired of white people. Except you guys. Except you guys and my wife and really the people that I interact with. I pick good
On
white
a daily
people.
basis.
I pick good white people.
Yay.
You know what I found out the other day? That one of the lead singers for the band, which I'm sure you might remember, Cross Movement, back in like the 90s, early 2000s. You know what I'm talking about? Like the Christian rap group? Oh, come on. You do know. You just don't know. Anyways,
I do know, but I don't know.
Right. You know of. You just,
He blocked it out. It's trauma.
yeah.
Probably.
Anyways, one of them has come out as like an atheist, and he's doing a interview with Captain Dadpool guy. So I might check that out later.
Yeah.
My current favorite song is this little tune called Good Morning Sunshine by the Narcissist Cookbook. And he is this, I should have looked this up. He is either Scottish or Irish. I always get mixed up with the accents. Those two are similar to me.
Probably Irish, because the Scottish accent I don't think would do very well musically in America.
Well,
Those two are similar to me.
it's one of those songs that actually, I mentioned this to Chris like a few weeks ago, and he did not look it up, which is fine. But it actually reminds me of how he helps me. And it's basically one of those songs to where it is like the first few lines is, good morning, welcome to the world, sunshine. You can't stay in bed forever. Remember the deal. Bed is for sleeping and masturbating. You've had as much as a human body can take for either of those things. So we're getting out of bed today. And then he kind of like the whole song is him like walking him through just doing normal routine things to get out of bed because he's hurt for some reason. And he goes, listen, I know this is at the end of the song. It's serious. I know how it feels. Like I've got you lugging around heavy rocks around all day for no reason with no reward. But please trust me. I can see that what you're not able to see yet. This is not just a pile of stones. We are building a castle together, and we're going to build it brick by heavy fucking brick. And it's just a really super motivational song that I like to start my day off with. So listening to that a lot.
Nice.
I like that.
Yeah.
Maybe I should listen
Hell
to it.
yeah, brother.
All right. So thank you, Shane, for that question and the other ones that you asked us that we will definitely be bringing in the next couple of weeks. But let's move along. Nate, Harley, your brother?
Yes, this is my brother.
Your brother.
My
I
brethren.
also have a brother named Nate. That's weird.
You have a brother named Nate?
Yeah.
And Tim.
Oh. Oh, my brother's full name is Nathan. Is that your brother's full name?
Yes.
Oh. Hashtag biblical things.
Is that where that's from?
No?
It's from the Bible?
Nathan, let's look it up, guys.
Is it in? I swear, I thought it was from the Bible.
Nathan in the Bible. Just type it.
Nathan.
It might not be. Could just be an average white man name.
Yeah, it's a prophet. Yeah.
Yeah.
He was in
Second Samuel.
Second Samuel. Yep.
And Kings and Chronicles.
Come on, theology
It's
degree.
from the David time period. Yeah, sorry. Sorry, guys.
Anyways, Nate asked, if money were no object, how would you spend your time? And I would like to add on to his question by putting on a boundary of let's take out family. Like, if this were just you, like, what would you do? Because obviously, like, I'm going to go with my family and go somewhere or do something. Like, but, like, let's take that out.
So when he says money is no object, does that mean, like, I have all the money in the world? Or,
Yes.
like, money is not something that society needs?
You're going way too deep into this. It means money doesn't matter.
Like
you can afford anything.
I can afford to do anything.
Yes.
I would travel a lot.
Same.
But I would hire a bodyguard to protect me.
I mean...
Ooh. Wait, why?
Because I'm a woman.
Oh, well, yeah,
So
I'll do it.
This is why it matters to me. Like, again, context is very important. Because, like, if I have all the money in the world to do whatever I want, I'm going to help people.
Chris,
absolutely.
Take that out. Like, yeah, boy, I guess that is part of the question.
Yeah. Like,
No. The question is, how would you spend your time? Like, yes, obviously, if you had all the money in the world, you would,
I would spend my time.
I mean, you could spend your time
in politics.
donating.
Yeah, I would be in politics. I would lobby for things that are important to help people. I would spend all of my money making sure that people get taken care of, setting up charities, things like that. But if it's a society where, like, money's not a necessary thing because everybody's fed and clothed and they all have medicine and all that, I would probably just be like a poet, or I would get really into writing music and learning how to play different instruments. Like, it matters.
Okay.
I need the context.
These are good answers.
I need the context.
Yeah.
Okay, so aside from saving the world, I would, you know how, like, some people would, you know what I mean? Like, saving the world through your money? That's what I meant. Okay,
Yeah.
okay. You just stopped and looked at me like I was stupid.
Well, I think it was more so because he was like, "That's exactly what I was just saying."
Right. So that's my point. Like, of course, we as decent human beings would want to do that. So, like, to me, like, that's why I separate it. I would, you know how, like, some people, like, want to go to, like, Asia and eat their way through Asia. It's like they go to different restaurants and different places. I would do that, but instead of food, I would go to soccer games throughout
that'd be
Europe
cool.
and South America.
I mean, why not do both? You got to
that's
eat.
a good point. Solid point.
You got to eat.
You
Yeah.
gotta eat.
Gotta eat. Why not both?
Everybody's got to eat.
So I would like to go visit
Everybody
all
eats.
the stadiums that I know are really big and famous, and go see these big teams. And yeah,
Yeah, that'd be really.
I think
cool,
it'd be
actually.
more fun to go to the little ones, honestly.
fun and terrifying, especially if you're in South America. Those games get intense.
I wouldn't know. I've only been to some in North America.
They get violent, man. There's a whole war that came from one.
Oh, you don't say.
From your Central American country. Yes, I'm well aware.
I remember one time we went to a soccer game for Marathon. It's my dad's team in Honduras. And we had to leave early.
It gets violent. It gets fucking violent.
Jeez.
Yeah, and those guys are no joke. Like, even they're just so passionate about it, and of course your passion will lead to hate and anger for the other people.
Yep.
But it's like
gang fights.
Yeah, it's just wild.
Yeah,
South
that makes
America
sense.
is so passionate with it.
I love that for them.
Good for you.
And we love this for them.
Well, thank you, Shane and Nate, for those questions. And guys, if you'd like to leave us a voicemail question, which we've had a couple, you can do that at 254-218-4042. Once again,
that is 254-218-4042.
And with that, let's move along to our final thoughts for today's episode.
Final thoughts. Bigots are stupid.
Yep.
Banning books is stupid.
Yep.
Fuck Ron
Just
DeSantis.
say that with a twang. Bigots are stupid.
I mean, you got to talk to them in their language.
Though I would like to know. I love catching on TikTok, mostly especially on TikTok, of like these Southern guys, usually guys, like that come out and like just read books, and so they start becoming, progressive and liberal,
have you
and,
seen
and
the-
their accents are still so strong, and you like, wait, are you making fun? Oh, you're serious. Okay, cool, nice.
Have you seen the guys? They're like they're secret liberals. Like they all just sitting around drinking their beers or whatever. He's like,
Yes.
"Hey, I voted for Obama," and everybody's like, "Oh." Like, I think gay people deserve rights. What are you talking
like
about
the
over there?
liberal
Oh,
farmers.
football. Ruh.
NASCAR.
That's funny.
Yeah, guys, just history is there. I think I sent you guys on TikTok. There's this book that came out in like the 80s or 90s, and it talks about like these cycles, especially in American history, of like 80-year blocks, where you get this prosperity at the beginning, and then like this awakening and troubling, and then ends up in like warfare of some kind. And it very closely aligns to American history. So like 80 years ago, we had World War II, and right after World War II, we had this period of blossoming with well, not for all people, obviously, but like the economy and everything blossomed. And then 80 years before that, you had the Civil War. 80 years before that, you had the American Revolution. And so basically this book lined out, and again, this is like the 80s and 90s, that this time period is basically it's leading up to something big. And I tell you what, a lot of this, like you mentioned, anti-Semitism and banning stuff, it's an indicator. It should be at least a bright flashing red light. Like, hey, we need to look at what we're doing as a nation and as a country and maybe think twice about it. Because we can learn from history. We can look at our past and go, what did we do wrong? And that's why I wanted to include that whole segment about Nazi Germany and the types of content that they banned, because it's just gosh darn similar.
It's repeating itself in America right now.
Yeah. And I do have hope for our future because of this younger generation. But I'm telling you right now, that's why I mentioned earlier, this older generation of white Americans are making it harder and harder for younger people to vote. And like, I think I just saw like a bill or something the other day where like they were trying to like basically cut out measures to do advertising for voting in high schools and stuff. Like, it was stupid, but it was like,
They also are trying to raise the vote of age. Oh, sorry, the aging. Sorry, what?
yeah,
They're also trying to raise the age of voting to, I think, like 25.
What the hell?
yeah.
Yeah.
Which, mind you, before, what was it, the Vietnam War, it was 21, and then people made a hoopla like, well, if we're going to send our kids who are 18 out to die, then they should be able to vote. And so they changed it to 18.
I actually think they should lower the age or remove taxes from people that are under 18 because they are being taxed without representation.
Yeah, for
Which
those
is
who
what our
work
whole
jobs.
country was founded on, according to their history.
Yeah. So yeah, my whole thing is, if you want to be a group of people that advocate for history, then go read your fucking history, because we are repeating it and it's super scary.
Yeah.
Harley, anything?
I think I want to say that although the history stuff is not for everyone, it is so important, and we hope that we put it in a way that was palpable to digest and like understand, rather than like your average history class where it was like blah 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 kind of thing.
Yeah.
But also to reinforce that this is important, and for you as a person to take this information and share it, and share what you know with others that don't know this, even if they may not agree with you, because at the end of the day, that is what you should be doing as a person who cares about other people. You should want what is best for your neighbor or your best friend or your dad or your whatever, your mom, etc. You should want what is best for them. And if you know this information and you are ignoring it, then you are to blame. Like, you are a part of the problem.
Yeah.
Complacency is compliance.
Yeah. And that's not to like scare you or anything like that, but it's the fact of the matter. Like, when you learn this new information, you should take it and you should do something with it. And whether that is as little as just sharing our podcast episode or talking to your significant other about it or whatever it might be. Or even if it's literally you being like, bro, did you hear this stupid episode? It was so dumb. You should go listen to it and hear how stupid they are. And then this person listens to it and they're like, damn, they're onto something.
Yeah.
I don't care. Whatever gets the job done. That's all I think I have. Do better.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as a country, do better.
Just do better.
Yeah.
All right. Well, on that note, we want to thank you all again for listening to our podcast. Be sure to subscribe, like, share, and leave a 5-star rating on your favorite podcast platform. And don't forget to follow us on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook at AlwaysMorePod. Chris, where can we find you?
I am on TikTok as Christopher.Lionheart, and I'm on Instagram as Captain_CT Ford.
Harley, where can we find you?
I am, sorry, that threw me through a loop. I am on Instagram at WhatHarley, WUT Harley, and on the Clock app at harleybean.co.
And you can find me on basically everything at Timothy Liechty. That's Liechty. Thank you again for listening and for being a part of the conversation. And remember, there's always more than this. Bye, everybody!